fire inspection fee. I wouldn't be surprised if that were separate fee.
And part of that, and if you read a lot of the literature too, or a lot of the comments, or a lot of the stories written in newspapers, is concern for the safety of these people who are coming here.
Sure,
absolutely. And you know, they don't know. You know, are there smoke detectors? Are they? Do the batteries work? Are there carbon monoxide detectors? All those things. And, you know, exit area. You know, how do you exit the house in case of a fire and things like that. Jude?
I have no concerns with the idea of amenities and Airbnb. My question is, what's the difference between that and the current uses for bed and breakfast? What's the difference?
I'm not here.
What's the difference between owner-occupied short-term rental and an bed and breakfast?
We allow B&Bs, especially for. What's the difference between a short-term owner-occupied?
There isn't necessarily.
Yeah, other than they don't have to give them breakfast.
You know,
So there is technically no limit to an owner-occupied.
Presently,
short-term
no.
Right.
Presently,
So
no.
Presently, no.
Requirements for a B&B, so.
Except for
like-
they're supposed to register at this point.
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So why would you change that?
It's conceivable that it'll all get lumped in together. And again, the owner-occupied ones may or may not have a cap on them.
Right, because there's no cap currently.
Right.
Right.
and there's a little thing about breakfast and all that stuff.
Actually, I like that Richard just brought that up. It should be checked, but I do believe that B&Bs have to register with the county health department because they are operating a kitchen which they're serving
Right.
people. Versus Airbnbs. Now, if an Airbnb is willingly cooking people breakfast, then that's a question for the county health department. They don't need to go in and they need to register as a B&B.
Right.
But I do believe, and it should be checked, is that a B&B has to register with the county health department. And I do believe that they receive a hotel tax to the county.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, if I could just jump in for a sec to bridge off of that,
And then
it might be good to add but besides like in the very first thing that says here's the definition of short-term rental, and I said does that include hotels? You said yes. It might be good to have a clarification of what's a B&B compared to an owner-occupied short-term rental, which might not serve breakfast. So
I agree. And I mean, that part of the exercise was just to go through these 18
right
and agree on
general concept.
general concepts that they all need to be fleshed out.
Well, yeah, but it'd be nice if we made a note of that. I think that's a very good point that Liam brought up, that we may be wanting to point people who are B&B that are actually serving with a kitchen, may want to point them to a different code that they need to do in addition to.
There's also work that needs to be done on the zoning law, which Ed and Paul have been working on and working out, which Paul wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to say that those things are defined.
Yeah.
You know, the difference in our definitions, the difference, the bed and breakfast and different.
Yeah, we're not going to get to it tonight, but in that larger package, Paul and Ed developed language for.
There's different definitions of bed and breakfast, short-term rentals, owner.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Real definitions in the future.
Norm?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back for a second to the issue about setting limits. I didn't mean to sound negative about that.
You didn't sound too negative.
But I actually have thought about it a little bit in the interim, and I think it's very positive. Because if you have a limited number of short-term rentals, you're going to, in my opinion, make for healthier short-term rentals. If you have unlimited short-term rentals and it gets flooded, everybody will struggle. And it'll be difficult. I have 27 and 24 units going next to me now. I'm not terribly concerned about it. I support the project. But if that continues, me and my singular rental, I'm going to, it becomes a problem. You get too many people in the boat, it sinks.
Yeah.
And it becomes a problem for everybody. So setting, it's culling or controlling, whatever you want to call it.
To some degree, though, that's self-regulating as well.
So that's I think it's healthy. I just realized it's good.
One thing about one thing about the limit, and the committee didn't really discuss it, and I kind of thought of it after the fact, but let's say, I would be willing to consider also, in terms of economic, on an economic need basis, if you have, say, a senior citizen who has a cottage out back and relies on that income really to support him or her, all right, and they miss out on the limit or something like that, they can show a reason they need that income. There could be exceptions to that limit, economically. We don't want to, take people's income away that they live on.
Well, they'd be owner occupied then, correct? If
Yeah,
they're-
that'd be
if they're on
owner
the property.
occupied. Yeah. If we did put a limit on that, yeah. Which one are we on here? 14?
I think 14.
A registration number will be given to each owner per dwelling unit. This registration number must be displayed in the dwelling unit and be featured in any ads advertising the unit, such as on Airbnb, VRBO, those types of things. Again, actually, this came from Airbnb. It makes it easier for the town to track. If they see a listing in Woodstock and there's no registration number list on that advertisement on Airbnb, they know that person is probably operating illegally according to these regs.
Sounds reasonable. I'm assuming if nobody pipes up on the board that
That's good. I'm good.
we're in agreement
Yep.
with the concept.
Failure of owners or their representative to adequately respond to inquiries by the town of Woodstock within a 24-hour period shall be considered a violation of these regulations and may be subject to penalties.
I'm piping up now. So I'm concerned with the 24-hour. Here's the if I can state the overall issue. My question is, the 24-hour period may seem reasonable, but sometimes you think somebody got the message, but they didn't get the message. Like I might have sent you an email and you might read it a week later, or I might leave you a phone message and you might pull it a week later. So the 24-hour period, the clock needs to start when the person got the message, not when you left the message. So 24 hours seems like a short period of time because how do you know the person got the message? It's too short a time. If you send an email or left a voicemail, the person could have pulled it a week later.
So then you could simply not pick up your phone and would never have to deal with it.
Because you could say, I just never got the message.
Yeah.
And then
But you can't say it's a violation if.
Well,
I mean, maybe somebody's traveling and they,
well, then they should have somebody
Yeah,
maintaining their property for them.
The application calls for
A contact.
not only the owner's name and information, cell phone, whatever it may be, but also who's the responsible. Who do we contact in an emergency? Right?
Well, sure.
And they must respond fairly quickly.
Yeah. But so the inquiry
and
needs
if
some-
they don't, I mean, because that's the problem.
Yeah.
If you get a noise complaint to the police, and the police contact the owner, and nobody does anything, you're violating.
And I'm not concerned if the police successfully contact the owner. I'm concerned with the wording because it could include times when the owner never got the word through whatever reason. So what's the check and balance to make sure? When you say inquiries, I will only be happy if there are words that are clear that the owner got the word,
so
not
let-
just you threw a lob over the fence
Well, but,
and you don't know where it
but
landed.
I'm an owner. I should be responsible enough to check because
but
I'm
how
running,
do
I'm
you-
running I'm running a business here. Okay,
One at a
and if
time.
I'm going to be irresponsible and not check messages or anything like that, then maybe I shouldn't be in the business. That's my point.
Okay, let me
I'm
ask
serious.
you, let me ask
I mean,
you a
we're talking
question.
about safety here. We could be talking about a fire. We could be talking about lots of things.
Okay.
That you just can't ignore. If you got people living in a house,
Yeah, I'll
you
take a
gotta
turn
pay-
after Bill's
you're-
done.
Let-
We'll have another
let-
turn after Bill's done. Bill's next.
Let me ask a question, because I also think 24 hours might be a little too short. Do we all agree, though, that there should be some time limit as to when this becomes an issue? Reggie, you look like you're in agreement.
24
So-
seems short, but maybe, but there is some reasonable number. Like
Right.
Richard said, if someone's
And
staying
again-
in your home, someone needs to be able to find
Right.
Either the owner or someone who's their representative.
And I agree that everybody should be providing an emergency contact, regardless of whether you're owner occupied or not owner occupied. So,
Yeah, I think there
Yeah.
needs to be some clarification of how the inquiry is made. So you have a registration sheet. It's got your phone number. It has an emergency contacts phone number. It could have your email. If somebody has inquired in every way that sheet provides, then say maybe 48 hours is better. But if somebody has only done one of those ways, I mean, it depends on where I am. You know, sometimes I'm easier to reach by phone. Sometimes I'm easier to reach by email. So, and it depends because I juggle. You know, not that nobody else juggles a lot of stuff. I'm sure other people do, but I do juggle a lot of stuff. I believe I am responsible, but I am juggling a lot of stuff, so I get to something a little later. So to say, well, if you're going to be responsible, you know, whatever. So I think 24 hours is a little tight, and the way of inquiring needs to be spelled out. How will the inquiry be made? So if I am an Airbnb owner, I know you're going to try to contact me by phone, or will you try every method?
But
I need to know how you're going to.
Again, you're to the concept you're open to.
I'm open to the concept as long as there's clarification of what the inquiry
Well,
will,
again, I mean,
how somebody will contact
We
me.
keep
that
saying
needs to be.
all these need to be clarified. They all need to be
And that would
worked out.
depend on how you filled out your registration form.
Right.
How you
Yeah.
want to be
And I
contacted.
do think 24 hours is too tight. Yes.
Well,
Well,
you know,
if there's an emergency, I don't think 24 hours is too tight.
I don't think 24 hours is too tight at all. If let's say somebody breaks the sliding glass door out of your house and it's 10 below, you want them to get a hold of you 24 hours, or you want to wait 48, or you know.
But you're talking about violation and penalties, and life happens. So that's
Well,
my point.
if I don't want to belabor it, but if next door to you is a party going on with 20 people staying in a house with 3 bedrooms, okay, and they're violating the noise ordinance,
Right.
you know, 10 minutes is going to be too long for a lot of people.
Well, I call the police because now we have a law.
and that's a
the
violation.
police can go handle
That's
it.
a violation of this.
But
and
the
the owner has
people
to be
who are in the
contacted.
building are violating. The owner didn't violate. The people who are renting violated, and they ought to get the violation, and they ought to get fined.
No. I disagree with that. But we can argue that later.
Yeah.
Because I disagree with it simply because if you stay at a hotel and the room next door to you is noisy, okay, you call the front desk,
Correct.
right? That's the owner. You know, let them deal
No,
with it.
not really.
Well,
It's not the owner. It's
okay,
the,
it's not-
it's the front desk.
It's the
It's not
representative.
days in. I know that corporate days in, but it's
And
okay.
the application sheet can have a representative, a local representative.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
So
the
it doesn't have to be
homeowner.
the-
It has to be somebody you can get a hold of. Well, think of it.
Well,
think-
if you change the word "shall" to "may," you have the word "may" in
But
other
again,
places.
I wouldn't get caught up.
Yeah.
Well, you do have the word "may" in other places, and if it said "may" be
I
considered
know, but-
violation, that would be better than saying "shall" be considered
it's
violation,
okay.
because we ought to be
That's okay.
flexible enough to deal with extenuating circumstances.
We're not writing the law tonight. We're just talking about
Well, I would
concepts.
have no problem with that.
Okay, well, I got one more point on this subject. If, let's say, you got 20 people in your house, and they're having a big party, and the police come on a noise complaint, that's a violation, right? We try to get a hold of you and say, look, Laura, there's 20 people in your house, but we can't get a hold of you because you don't read your email or you're not answering the phone or whatever. And now they have a big party again the next day, and the police have to come. There's a second violation that you could have eliminated, right? And then let's say it's a long weekend, so you could get 3 violations in a long weekend and not have picked up your email and not known to call these people and say, pack your stuff and hit the road. It's just, you know.
Well, that's why the inquiry ought to be more than just one method. It shouldn't just be email. It should probably be in every contact you put on your thing. Then maybe it's overkill, but I think that the
Well,
inquiry
no, I
should
don't.
probably be-
I can agree that they should make every effort to contact
exactly.
you. However
And this
they do.
doesn't say that we won't.
Right.
I haven't noticed, I may have missed it, where the police are required to come, and on what basis.
Well, they would most likely be called on a noise complaint.
Is it required that they come out?
The police?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they get a call, they usually respond.
Yeah.
Usually is a word that doesn't
I'll-
affect my question.
I would say that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Woodstock police have a pretty good.
It's not written down.
Well, and getting back to violations, it should be clear who is considered at fault for the violation, because if it's a noise problem, the people that rented are making the noise, and I would believe the violation ought to go against those people, not the landlord. The landlord might be smart enough not to rent to them again,
No, but
but the landlord doesn't know when they rented to them who they rented to the first time, likely.
So the person making the noise is going to get a ticket based on the noise.
The person making the noise, exactly.
But the violation to the owner is that if it happens enough, you lose your registration.
Well, but it depends on whether they depends on whether they own the violation or whether the person making the noise owns the violation. If the landlord, if you're going to log them with the violation because somebody's noisy in their house and they rent it to them for a week, they probably can't just throw them out, and you don't have. It's like having control of your kids. Nothing wrong with your kid because he's very nice, but it's like the parents are supposed to control the kids, but it can be a challenge. So
we got a lot to work out on this one.
Yes, that's my belief. It needs to be fair to everybody.
We don't want to encourage lousy owners.
Well, exactly, and that's what. Yeah, I agree. But you
Okay.
don't want to penalize
16.
the owner when it wasn't their fault.
Yeah. Well, okay. Overnight, here we get into the more specifics. Overnight STR guest occupancy will be limited to 2 guests per bedroom.
I'm fine with some limit. And again, I don't think we need to get down in the weeds tonight and pick out a number. Although I thought you might state 2 adults because you could get a couple with a child.
You can say adults.
Yeah. But I'm fine with some limit.
Well, I would think a limit might be based on square footage of the bedrooms because, same thing. You might put more kids in, but if you want to limit, limiting the adults probably isn't the worst thing. If you don't limit the kids, because you can get a lot of kids that can do a lot of damage. So I'm not sure,
So you're open to some limit, though?
I'm open to a limit, and I think it maybe is dealing more with square footage of the bedroom area as opposed to, necessarily 2 per bedroom. You might have an 80-bed bedroom. You might have
a large bedroom, you can shove 4 beds in. Now you got 8 people staying in one room or something like that. And that's where the parties start. That's where young people come up and you got 10, 12 people staying in the house, sleeping on couches, sleeping on the floor. That's where the problems start, basically.
Right. Okay.
That was the thinking here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would be. The thing about adult versus child, you can jam a lot of
can
kids
see
in, and that
adults.
causes a problem.
I don't want-
But you can jam a lot of kids in too. So I'm not sure why you're not limiting the kids because you can jam a lot of kids in, and they can cause a problem. So.
One off-street park.
10-year-olds renting a house together.
Well, you might have a bunch of parents that have a bunch of kids. And
Eliminate that problem. We wrestled with this also, and we looked at it as, yes, you may have a couple bring a baby with a bath and mat or something like that into the room with you, or have a 6 or 7-year-old sleeping, to dictate that fine, we didn't get into that. We just, the typical laws were 2 per bedroom. So we kind of went with the norm of what most laws were regulating. And again, once you're 18, you're an adult, so you're not a kid anymore. So if you got a bunch of 18-year-olds renting a house, it should be 2 per room. Hopefully.
Right.
okay, so the group likes adults versus guests. I'm kind of concerned about jamming a bunch of lower than 18-year-olds in a house with their parents. But if you have a whole pile of kids, I can see there being an issue. That's all.
One off-street parking space, 9 feet by 18 feet, is required for every 2 bedrooms available for short-term rental use. Parking area shall not be located on the front yard.
So I'm fine with them having to provide some parking, and not in the front yard. I think we're going to have to take a little bit of a look. If you had something like a B&B situation where I have a house with 3 or 4 bedrooms, it's possible that I could be renting to 3 or 4 different groups. So you might want to keep it to a spot per bedroom. I don't know. If you're renting a whole house, the likelihood that you get groups coming up together in a car would be greater. So
this is where later into the zoning aspect of it and the definitions, we sort of broke down that a short-term rental home or a short-term rental establishment as a bed and breakfast establishment is going to require special use permit. So at that point, then you get to regulate parking. So anything under that would be a 2 or 3 bedroom home.
Okay.
You know, so we didn't really look at parking being that big of an issue in a 2 or 3 bedroom, as opposed, once you get beyond that, then it would be controlled under special use.
Where you may be looking at changing this form. Okay.
Additional
Well, that's
parking.
all.
Number of bedrooms, yeah.
So we're on the same
Yeah,
page.
yeah, once you hit that number, I think we raised it from 2 to 3.
Okay. So
Special use permit, anything over 3, they got be sent to the planning board, and we can look at screening, parking, and lighting.
So hold on, say that again, Paul. Who's going to the planning board? Who are you suggesting?
Bed and breakfast right now, a home doesn't require it, okay?
Right.
A bed and breakfast establishment requires a special use permit.
And what's a home is one
Well,
or,
right now, a home is up to 2, we want to
One or
raise it to
two.
3.
right, okay.
Because I looked at my little house on Sherman Road, I got a 3-bedroom house, 1,200 square feet, I got enough parking for 7 cars, you know, the old IBM driveway. I'm thinking, that's not bad, but when you start to get 4 or 5, 6 bedrooms.
Right.
It's more people. So right now, the law states B&B home is permitted. B&B establishment is a special use.
And that's 3 to 5, correct?
2. More than 2.
More, okay, yeah.
More than 2. We wanted to go from more than 3.
Okay.
That's which is in the.
So 1 to 3 would become home, just a permit.
Yep.
3,
And then 3 or more would be.
more than 3 would,
And
would,
the idea was to make it fair for the bed and breakfasts. If they're required to get a special use permit right now, why would a short-term rental not be required?
I agree.
No, so it's just, we pretty much mimicked the definitions of those, of the bed and breakfast, and made short-term rentals. Short-term,
So, you know, just to go back to something from a year or two ago, one of the concerns when we first started talking about this is the planning board would be inundated.
Well, we looked at that, but we haven't, since I've been there, I don't think I've ever dealt with B&B special use permit.
Right.
So how many are there now, and how many 4-bedroom homes are being rented?
Right. So it wouldn't be a
So
problem.
the odds are, we're gonna get some,
Right.
and we should, because that's the control for the neighbors and the privacy and all.
But I think that one of the things the town could do, let's say hypothetically that all of a sudden we got 50 applications to the planning board. That would inundate you guys. But we could, now chances are a lot of them are going to be operating anyway. And we could say, come fill out your application, continue to operate with the understanding that you're in the queue to go to the planning board.
Well, that or the registrar, the person, because we felt that person was almost gonna have to do some site visits. To look at the, you know, so at that point, if they go and someone has an establishment or more than 3 rooms, and they have ample parking, maybe there's at that point, they're not.
Do a waive.
A waiver.
If the property needs to be upgraded, additional parking needs to be required for the use, then maybe.
You could have the review checklist that you guys have already. You could send the person out with that, say, here's what you need, and,
Establishments.
yeah.
You know what I mean, for the,
Right.
yeah, for the establishments.
So now, how about for the unoccupied homes that are being rented out? Do you see any
It would be the same.
same principle?
Same thing.
So if I have a house with 1 to 3 bedrooms, I don't need any planning board.
Just right.
If I have more than 3, I have to come for site plan.
Or more than you.
That's,
Then it might be as per case basis, depending on site visit by the registrar.
Right.
In coordination with the zoning officer. Whoever
That's-
needs to do that site visit to determine if ample parking and,
that's exactly where I thought we should be going.
yeah.
Good.
Okay, heading home stretch. The last bit here, second to last bit, deals with fees. And again, this is up to the board in terms of how they want to structure it or how they want to set it. But the number of STR units that may be operated in a building and their associated registration fees will depend on whether or not the building is owner-occupied or non-owner occupied, it should say, as further detailed in the chart on the next page. So why don't we just go to, basically, we recommend a distinction between owner-occupied and non-owner occupied. So a single-family home, owner-occupied, may offer rooms or whatever as an STR, $100 per bedroom per year, up to 2 rooms.
Why are you limiting to 2 rooms in owner-occupied?
Well, that gets into, did we do that?
Yeah, I mean, because if they have a
Okay,
4-bedroom
right,
house,
right.
why can't they rent out 3 of the 4 bedrooms? So I was confused why you limit it to 2 rooms.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself. But,
Read that again, read that next one.
well, you got $100 per bedroom per year, up to 2 rooms for owner occupied.
I think that should fall in line with the same
Yeah.
changes we made with the B&B. It should be 3 rooms.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
three
it's
sounds
$100
better.
per room.
But up to 3 rooms is better than 2 rooms, I
Yeah,
think.
but then we get it, you'll see the zoning changes.
Yeah, okay,
And
cool.
then we get into the zoning changes.
Okay, so I'm okay with 3 rooms. 2 seem like a small number. But if you're not owner occupied, you don't have any limit at all, and that confused me.
Right. Well, yeah, right. Single-family home, not owner occupied, $150 per bedroom.
Yeah. So here's my point of confusion. I guess I assumed that the registration fee was that they were only able to rent out as many as 2 rooms, and now we said 3. But you're saying they might have an 8-bedroom house and they're only getting $300 charge, or are you saying they can't rent out all 8 bedrooms? I mean, I know it's a crazy, who has 8 bedrooms, but I'm trying to figure out. I at first read this as though you were limiting the number.
No.
What we've run into there is weird, because with someone staying there, the numbers change a little bit, because you could have 4 bedrooms and you're only renting 3 out because one's occupied by the owner.
Well, sure, but let me
So
use
it kind of changes the formula a little bit.
Right. Well, hypothetically speaking, though, say you have a 5-bedroom house, and now we said you can rent out 3 rooms. Does this tell me I can rent out 3 rooms, or is it telling me I can rent out the 4 bedrooms I'm not using, but I'm only getting charged for 3?
No, you could rent out all 4, but again, it's not going to be a home any longer. It's going to be a bedroom. It's going to be a
Well, no, I'm saying a 5-bedroom house.
short-term rental establishment, which will require a special use permit.
Okay, so if you're over.
Yeah, you kick into a new zoning.
Well, some of that ought to be clear. More needs to jump out here than it
It
did.
will be too when you see some of the zoning definitions.
Right.
But yeah, that could be clarified.
So I guess what's not clear then, and maybe it was previous, I missed it, but I guess what's not clear is how many. It should be stated clearly how many rooms you're allowed to rent out, and then you're going to get charged for.
You rent as many as you want.
The difference in it is only in the fee. We felt
Okay.
if it's owner occupied, you should be less per room.
Right, which I'm
than if
good
it's,
with. Right. So I'm good with that. So if it's owner occupied, you pay less per room, which is good. You'll pay up to $300 if you rent out as many as 3 rooms. And if you have a house with many more bedrooms than that, and you want to rent out more than 3 rooms.
What happens to bedroom 4 and 5?
Oh, I don't see the chart. Maybe that's $300.
There should be another line in the chart.
It should just be
That says-
$100 for every additional room.
Okay.
But did you
It's always
guys?
$100.
So it's $100 per room.
Did you guys not talk about though? And maybe you nixed this. I thought as it was $100 for say the first 3 bedrooms, and then it might go to $150.
Well, we talked about that.
You talked about, but you didn't.
Yeah, we had a scale.
Okay. Eventually, then it gets complicated.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm okay with no limit. I think no limit makes sense.
So this should
And
really
if there's-
say-
There's no limit, but what it'll do is either make a owner establishment.
Exactly.
Then it'll-
That's the trigger.
And that ought to be made clear too when somebody reads it.
So really, this chart only needs to say $100 per room per year or $150.
Yeah.
per year.
Correct.
There's not a limit.
There's no limit.
Correct.
But she's right. At some point, we need to clarify on
So-
when the zoning gets triggered.
Well, when you would
So
have thought
my
this limits
so my big
column would
question
have had
is, we all agreed that we should be charging fees, right?
it. Charging fees, and I'm also good with.
We all agree we should be charging fees.
Absolutely.
Yay!
So I'm going to check yes on that one.
And I agree with more for the not owner occupied than the owner occupied.
I do too. Jude?
But I am consider.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Was there any consideration given to limiting the number of days or evenings that can be rented by a non-owner occupied
Yeah.
short-term rental?
There was, yes, and some places do that. Initially, however, I think the problem we discussed is managing that. All right. Well, let's say you can rent 30% of the year. How do you manage that with 250 places or whatever? How do you keep track of that? How do you regulate that? I'm not saying we can't get there, but in some places,
There are a lot of laws and
I would actually like to do
that
that.
are not necessarily enforced on a regular basis, but they exist on the books for a reason, because we're trying to control the way we have our residential areas. So if you don't limit that, I know Lori's argument was that these young people are coming in and they're only here for the month of July and they need to whatever. But then if they're renting every single day of the week for an entire year, then that becomes a different kind of business. then I'm living next door to a hotel.
Right.
And that changes the quality of my life, and it changes my community.
Exactly.
So I would just urge you to consider putting a limit on it, and yes, it might be difficult to enforce, but there will be instances where it will become obvious.
I actually agree with Jude. I'd like to see some time limit, either, half of a 30-day month or half the year, whatever, for that very reason. Because at that point now, I don't mind the young people coming up and buying a home, and maybe buying a home that they're stretching and they need to rent it out a little bit to make those payments. But it's a different thing when they're coming up and buying homes just to rent out for the year. And I think that's got a whole different flavor. If those young folks are buying the house and then using it part-time, they're more invested in the community.
Oh, for sure.
Or if they're renting to a single occupant for a year because they need to go away, or even, it's
That single
it's a
occupant.
Yeah.
different
becomes-
environment
yeah.
for the neighborhood.
And Bill,
Liam and then Jay. Liam and Jay.
There's going international now. There's a court case between Airbnb and the city of Paris. This is something that is, I believe, involved in the court case, which is I believe it's
You hear
the Paris City Council were trying to limit the number of Airbnbs, and we're trying to also limit the days in which they could be rented. I believe that's part of the case, and that should be looked at for some guidance. I do believe that Airbnb is fighting hard against that particularly. That's
Against the percentage idea?
I believe, well, so 63% of Parisian Airbnbs are actually, according to their regulations, are illegal. They are not registered. You have to be registered in Paris. Paris has very similar laws that we're trying to pass here. And a lot of Parisian Airbnbs apparently do not follow them. So I believe that there has been an idea about limiting the number of days somebody can be in Airbnb, including, I believe that they're trying to limit people renting for holidays, if I'm correct. And that's where they ran into some really severe difficulties, because there was arguments there that you're now limiting commerce. But if I'm correct, the limitation was about a week. You'd only be there for a week, and then you'd have to leave. There are people who do stay for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or for a month or for the summer. So I think that it's a good idea, but there definitely does. We should really check the math on that one.
Jay, you had a comment or a question?
that last previous exchange of words approaches my single main concern about this issue. And I guess I should say that I'd submitted to Richard as full a reply to this as I possibly could come up with. But the main concern I have is with the density of these units that were chosen to be bed and breakfast, STRs, or whatever. I think that we must not choose willy-nilly a bunch of applications in this district because they happen to make an application. I think we have to be concerned what Woodstock is. We already have a crowded center of town, and we have to consider whether there should be several more added to this out of center, out in the west, east, north, whatever. I'm sure that mountain properties will be very favored. And it's up to us as the guardians of the town and of the future of the town to make damn sure that we have spread these things around in an equitable manner. Now, 2 homeowners may, next to each other, may decide that they both want to have STRs. Now, depending on the density, we may have to say to one or the other, we're sorry, because the density of the town is the prime concern that I have, and we all should have.
So along with let me see what number it
And
was.
number 3 comes closest.
That's where I was going. So with number 3, where there's a cap of X number of units, you would also want to see that divided somewhat equally throughout the town.
Yes. I think otherwise the future of the town could be very scrawny.
Do you have a comment toward that?
Yeah, I agree with that, but unfortunately, I think, having facts, the sound is like they get limited as you go out.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't as many out in the R5 and the R8 districts as you're going to find in the R15 and the Hamlet. And for us to be able to tell them that we're only going to do 50 in the Hamlet when there's 300, and you're going to do 300 in the other districts when there's only 50.
Right.
You know, so you really have to look at, I think when we get the information from the county, if it gives the addresses, you're going to be able to get a better idea where they're located.
You'll certainly be able to put it on a map.
Yeah.
Actually, the soft,
Hamlet's probably hammered the most, I think.
Oh, we're hammered pretty good up there, yeah.
But it seems like, I know one in Riverby, Abbey Road, but they're not as much, because a lot of them come up, don't have cars or zip cars or nothing, they want to be close to the Hamlet.
Right.
I think we'll have to look at that when we get the information from the county, Jay.
And,
I don't want people, visitors to town in 10 years from now saying, look what those idiots did.
No, I agree.
Oh, they're going to probably say that anyway, Jay. They'll probably say it anyway.
I think that ship sailed, Jay.
I think they may already be saying
the
it.
software actually does lay out maps with density, by color, does all that nice stuff. So the other thing, I mean, you look at what Hurley's thinking about, they limit. They're thinking about limiting, and towns do this, they limit it to a certain specific area.
Geographical area.
We could say, okay, only along Mill Hill and Tinker can you have a short-term rental if we wanted to. I don't think we want to, but actually I think what I read in the paper was Hurley was looking at Route 28 as the only possibility.
And a pretty small section of Route 28.
Yeah, it's not that much there.
Well, I would love to see that happen, but I don't see that being workable,
Yeah.
because if you allow it in my zoning district, let's say Paul lives next to me, he's got an Airbnb, he's doing real well. I said, geez, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get me an Airbnb. And you tell me I can't have one, right? How do you back that up? Right?
Because there's too many in your district, you're saying.
Yeah, but I don't see I see that's where you might get attorneys involved in.
Right.
Do you think that number 3 should be rewritten? I think it's the one that comes closest to...
I think they all need to be rewritten, Jay. I think, actually, what I was going to suggest, but they all have to be fleshed out.
Yeah.
My next suggestion was going to be that we all go home, take these home. Not right now. Don't get that excited. I thought you were adjourning on your own again.
I was on the way out.
No, I got plenty of time tonight. But that we should each flesh these out on our own. And, a while back we started an email, where we were answering these questions and we were looking at each other's answers. I would propose we do the same thing, where we start to really flesh out our solid thoughts. And this is where you can get into the weeds, Laura, with specific numbers. And
Yeah, okay. Well, I did have 2 more comments before we finish, though. But then what I would say is if Richard or whoever would update based on what they heard tonight and send us a fresh copy. So instead of looking at the one that we already... Instead of looking at the copy that we already know is going to have changes, it'd be nice to look at the
I didn't hear
next
it. We didn't
level.
agree on anything tonight, so I don't know what I would update, except for a couple things like adults or whatever.
Oh, and that was one of the things I had a comment on.
well, you know what? I did take some notes. Let me
I got
see.
some notes, but
You know what? You and I can sit down the next day or two and maybe put an email together and send it out and start to...
So my other question was, so this table here, the center column, limitations, max number of STR, it seems like it's missing some data, because it doesn't, may offer rooms and home as STR was kind of the answer, but that doesn't tell you anything about limitations or max numbers of STR, so I guess I was confused.
Well, it wouldn't tell you the max number of STRs total in the town. Basically, just think of it as $100 a room.
Oh, I thought it was limitations, but you have this column that tells you something but didn't tell me anything.
Yeah, no,
I'm not sure what it's trying to tell me is my point.
That was my column, that's why it's blank.
Okay. Well, anyway, all righty. So that's to be done. Okay. And then the other comment my other comment I was going to make about changing to, I would still like back on number 16. I still like it to say limited to 2 guests per bedroom, but then say for example. Well, okay, but then say, for example, children under 2 are not counted, because I wouldn't want to just say limited to 2 adults, because you could have 17-year-old children and 16-year-old whatever. But I understand your point that if you have a baby in a bassinet, so I would rather it stay 2 guests per bedroom, but the clarification be if you have children under 2, they're not counted in the number of guests in the bedroom.
well, I don't think we were counting, we were thinking of adults. Generally, I think our conversations was about adults, 18 years and older.
Right.
That if you came up here with a 15 or 16-year-old kid as part of your family, they don't count.
So in terms of
The
you
odds
stuff
are-
as many
the-
of those in your room, you stuff 5 people in a room if you want. If you're a parent with 3 kids, you can stuff all 5 of you in one bedroom, and you're saying that would be okay.
Well, odds are, though,
Let them sleep in the car.
2 parents showing up with a couple of kids are going to, they're not going to be. Odds are they won't be rowdy and having parties in there.
But I'm saying if you have a 3-bedroom home and you have 3 couples that each brought their 3 kids, according to this, you could have 5 people in each of 3 bedrooms. You could have 15 people in that house, and you don't think there's going to be noise in the yard? Kid
Yes.
noise?
And then the police will go and give them a
But
ticket.
but that's why I believe that. Okay,
Well, again, you're getting into the weeds, and we
Yes, all right.
talked about not doing that tonight.
Yeah, okay, but then you did say you're going to change from guest to adult, and I'm saying I disagree with you.
I just suggested it. We didn't change anything.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Okay, I will plan to send an email with my comments, just so that when you guys sit together, you'll have something in writing.
Okay. Jude?
My last comment is that there are certain commercial businesses that we do not allow in residential areas, one of them being a hotel. So if you would consider limiting the number of days that a short-term rental can rent out rooms or whatever, that you would figure out where that line is, where something is a short-term rental that is helping somebody keep their property, and when it turns that corner into a business. And so maybe I don't know where that line is, and that's probably something that could be researched a little bit. But that's what I'm thinking about. Is that am I living next door to a residence, or am I living next door to a business? And which ones are we going to allow in this town? Because the zoning law's pretty careful about what's allowed and what's not.
And that's where the main-
Policies cross that line.
And that's where the main concerns are, in those homes that are not owner-occupied. Somebody lives in Long Island and they buy a house up here and just hire a management firm to change the sheets on, that's the hardest one for me. And as Bill mentioned, some people are doing multiple, So they're basically running businesses in residential areas. I don't know how, the only way to...
And never going to the planning board.
And never going to the planning board. So you either say no, prohibit it totally, or maybe you give them one. I don't know. That's what we got to decide.
Jude, I'm going to invite you to every Airbnb or STTR meeting, because I agree with you. I really would like to see some limit on throughout a year on how often they can be rented, because I think that would really go a long way.
I have no problem with it.
I think it'll be hard. Well,
You just got to tell me, show how we can do it. That's the only thing.
Understood. And that's going to take a lot of thought. But I think that could be the single most critical thing, honestly. Anybody have any other comments? Public? Anybody? Joe?
Nice job, I would say.
Yeah,
Overall,
wonderful
very nice job.
Thank you to the
On
committee.
a different topic.
Well, let's just, is everybody finished with the
Yeah, I am.
okay.
What happens if you rent out a couch? Because I know they do that a lot as well. And
Can't.
they don't rent out a bedroom.
They rent out a couch.
I
I
had
guess we'll have to work on that.
I have a cousin once removed who did that. Young girl motorcycled her way across the United States, and she says there's a website where she could tell who had a couch where she could sleep, and then the website also had the people that were renting to know whether you're getting a good person or a bad person sleeping on your couch. And I know a relative that actually got her way across the country on a motorcycle, sleep on people's couches by using a website to find where they were.
So I'll throw that back to the committee. You guys can come back with the recommendation on couches.
Committee's adjourned.
Jay, you had the floor?
Where is the Woodstock quilt?
The Woodstock quilt, they used to hang in the bank.
Yeah.
It's at the historical. It's stored at the Historical Society.
And why is it not hung in a suitable public space that we have? I don't know that the
Well, if you want to donate the money to help us do it, we'd be glad to do
has
it.
as much wall, but
It belonged to the bank.
It's a beautiful, important piece of our town, and we should be displaying it.
It belonged to the bank gave it to the Historical Society of Woodstock. The Historical Society has exhibited it at times. If the town wants to put the money into it to properly protecting it and wants to exhibit it publicly, we'd be glad to do it.
Let's do it.
Well, if the town wants to pay for it, sure.
I think the bigger one's going to be.
What kind of funds
Huh?
are you talking about?
Going to be the bigger one.
We're working on that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The payment of it there?
That's what Mr. Rose says.
What kind of funds are you talking about, Reg?
Well,
If my,
it's material.
Tape
It has to
measure's
go behind glass.
and we
Otherwise, it
we
gets
fur
dust
it out
and,
so it comes over
and
from
all that
those pipes.
stuff. And
So it needs a big frame.
Just goes in
Needs a
there.
big frame.
needs a big frame
Almost
and
like it was
glass.
made for it.
Plexi is
We
probably.
could put it down here, but I got to get rid of that cold air.
Plexi
Something
is
like that.
probably.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, I just want to address one thing you said earlier because I think I misspoke. The resolution for the noise ordinance did not change the zoning law. It supersedes the zoning law. So the zoning law, there's still room to change and make proper amendments. So we did not change the zoning law, simply superseding it. So
Isn't that the same thing?
Can we adjourn?
No.
You guys
We
can,
have-
you guys can go argue that?
But the definition is, to me, it sounds like, if you pass another law that has to work in conjunction with the existing law.
anybody have any other comments, questions, anything? Okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait a second. Who did that one?
What's that? We can give it to Richard. Richard didn't get too many. I had more seconds than Richard tonight.
What time is it? 9?
It's 12 hours and 5.